Okay, welcome back to one of my videos, and today we stopped off at one of the national parks here, which actually turns out to be the Empire State Mine. It closed up in the late 50s, and we're gonna go around and check some of the buildings out here. This is the main building right here, for the visitor center, and then we're gonna go down and try and take a look at the mines and some of the surrounding equipment that's still left here historically. So, without any further ado, let's check out what's. Okay, we're walking up on the mine yard itself, and you can see that there's several old buildings up here, all in a great shape. We'll get to check out some of these right here and see what there is to see. Oh wow, they even got an old stamp mill. It's pretty cool. Alright, let's keep going.
So, still more coming in. So this is the refinery. This is where we separated the gold from all the rock we had to dig up with it. This is where we separated those 367 miles of tunnels from that little block that you see out there. That's, yeah, it's a lot of gold, but it'd be a lot of rock to have to move to get it also. So I explained the stamp mills out there and the mercury tables. The mercury would be scraped, put in buckets, and they'd bring it over here. First thing we'd do is we'd put it in a canvas sack, and we'd twist it real tight and squeeze as much mercury out of it as we could. The mercury would go back to the stamp mills where they'd reuse it. The next thing we'd do is we'd take the mercury amalgam, and this was our retort. You got a picture, this thing was a brick oven. This tube was kind of in the middle of the brick oven. And then there'd be a pipe connected to the back, come out here and down through a water-cooled heat exchanger that could pull heat out of whatever vapors would occur. Okay, so just like boiling water. When you boil water, you heat the water up, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter until it reaches 212 degrees, and it never gets any hotter, it just boils away, it disappears. Mercury boils at 675 degrees. So we would heat this unit up to 700 degrees. That boils off all the mercury into a vapor, which is extremely dangerous to breathe. It will kill you. The vapors go out the back of this, down the water-cooled heat exchanger, and just like windows in your house, when you're boiling water, it's cold outside, all the water runs down your windows, it pulls the heat out, becomes a liquid again. We'd take the heat out, it would become liquid mercury again, which we accumulate in the mercury jugs and send them back to the stamp mill. So we did not release a lot of vapors. It was not really dangerous as far as mercury vapors. We captivated everything. After we put the mercury amalgam in here, it was sealed with a door, and then there was a door outside the oven in addition to that. It was really hot, particularly during the summer, and then you had to wear these asbestos outfits. You didn't want to work in here, but it wasn't real dangerous because of the mercury fumes. Okay, we would take the sponge gold that came out of here. The reason it's called sponge gold, when it was put in there, it was a mixture of mercury and gold, and we just vaporized the mercury out, leaving all these pockets in the gold. The gold looked like a sponge. We would take the sponge gold out of here. We'd put it into one of these crucibles right here. We had a chain horse. We'd pick it up and put it in the bouillon furnace and heat it to 2,000 degrees, melting. We'd then lift it out of there, and we'd pour an ingot that size right there, which is 1,000 troy ounces, 68 pounds. Let it cool. We'd drill the corners out, send them to the assay office, find out how pure it was, and the block and the assay report would go to Sacramento, and they would pay us. Now, one thing I'd like to point out at this point, again, is that's 68 pounds of gold. So next time you're watching a Hollywood Western, and the bad guys are robbing whatever it is, and they're loading blocks of gold that they're throwing between each other and putting them all in this one set. Their horses were really strong back in those days. Really strong. Okay, after 1910, we set up a cyanide process. It was discovered in 1840s by a German physicist that liquid cyanide will dissolve gold. So what we did was, in 1910, we set up a cyanide process where all that trash, crumbled up rock that used to be thrown away, we'd put in those big vats, and just like making coffee, we'd turn sprinklers and sprinkle, recirculating the liquid, a very dilute solution of cyanide, just let it percolate down through all the sand, and it would dissolve all the gold out of the sand. After it had been dissolving for a few days, just a bit percolating, we'd take the liquid off the bottom, put it in another tank, throw away all the sand and gravel that remained, and after the liquid was in another tank, we would add powdered zinc to the liquid mixture. Cyanide has a preference for powdered zinc to gold. So what happened is all the powdered zinc would then go into solution, and the gold would precipitate out as a black sludge in the bottom of the tank. Now we get rid of the liquid that was there, and the black sludge would come over here and be put into the Rockwell rotary furnaces. We heat it up to a little over 2,000 degrees, and then we pour it into one of these cone-shaped molds down here. Well, gold is really heavy, really heavy. So as this cooled, all the gold would go to the bottom of that little cone, and all the other stuff that was dissolved in the cyanide would be up above it. After it cooled, we'd hit it with a sledgehammer, and the little tip of that cone was pure gold. We'd put it into the Rockwell furnace, heat them up to a little 2,000 degrees, and pour another ingot. Now, these are the foundations from our stamp mills. When we had the stamp mills, there was a large building over this originally. We had 80 stamp mills operating. Each stamp weighed 1,750 pounds and dropped 104 times a minute. Just as a comparison, you have a 10 stamp over there. Each one of those stamps weighs 850 pounds. Those are very small compared to the stamps we had operating here. That's a Borden pan right there. Didn't really belong at this point, but they used that in processing the concentrates, the material that flowed off the end of the copper tables, which were at the end of these stamp mills. The concentrates then be ground up real fine before they went through a cyanide process after 1910. That's what we used that Borden pan for. We'd have like cannonballs, big chunks of steel in there, and you'd pour ore in, and it would just pulverize it into a real fine dirt.
Wow.
Everything was sold when the mine closed in 1956.
And it's incredible. Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you.